All right, this afternoon's class is our routing and mapping class. What we're going to look at is how to set up a reoccurring route schedule for any type of reoccurring service. We'll set up the service frequencies, our technicians. We'll look at then how to print a daily schedule or a schedule for a week, how we utilize what we call route tickets to manage the basically a service slip for each visit. That'll tie into the billing side of this route schedule, and then we'll try to optimize the schedule we set up, see it in MapPoint, get the best route order that we can drive that in and how we use MapPoint. Now, this is designed to be an interactive training. I do appreciate all feedback, all questions. If there is a quick question, feel free to stop me. I may have to defer it to a little later if I'm trying to a certain point, but don't hesitate to ask questions. That enhances the experience for everyone. Now, where I'm going to start is on our route schedule, just by clicking the top button on the toolbar. First thing,
can't really talk.
The first thing we need to set up are our service frequencies. And these are just the intervals in between our different visits to the customer. Now to double-click the frequencies, if we double-click in this field here, it's going to open up our frequency maintenance window, and this is where we can set up those intervals. Now the most common ones we see in the different industries are probably like a weekly and a bi-weekly service. So I could set up a simple weekly service that reoccurs every 7 days just by giving it a label and putting in 7 in the length of days. That simple. Bi-weekly, be once every 14 days. Now we can accommodate a myriad of frequencies here by using either interval settings or the monthly selection. And I'll set up a couple more examples. I'd recommend if you do a monthly service, the simplest way to do a monthly service is every 28 days, every 4 weeks. If you set up a customer on a monthly reoccurring schedule, let's say on a Friday, and it reoccurs every 28 days, it's always going to be a Friday every 4 weeks. If we used a calendar month, maybe 30 days there, it would eventually roll to a Saturday or Sunday. This, we can ensure that it stays on a work week. I could use interval settings with the monthly selection. Maybe I have some services that are seasonal, that we only do maybe at the beginning of the year. I'm going to leave my length of days blank. I could use interval settings, and I could have it reoccur maybe the 3rd Thursday of the months that are selected. That service then for that customer would only reoccur on these selected months. Once it hit April, it would set up that service again January, and it would be the 3rd Thursday of those months that are selected. Now when setting up these frequencies, we either use a length of days or we use a combination of the interval settings or monthly selection. We cannot use a length of days and interval settings in monthly. So it's one or the other. Once we set up the frequencies, we can just reopen the route schedule, and we should be able to see those in the drop-down. The next thing we need to set up are the actual technicians doing the work or driving the route. We could either set up technicians or crews or truck numbers to kind of use as our label for these different routes. And just by double-clicking in the route field, we get to the sub-assigned list where I could set up a technician, maybe R1 for Route 1, and put in the technician's name and he's Route Tech 1. I could maybe make this Crew 1. I could put in the crew leader's name here maybe, and then maybe this is the maintenance crew. Now, depending on your industry, we do see a lot of our pool companies using the R1. You have pretty standard routes, R1 for your first tech, R2 for your second tech. In the lawn landscape business, I've seen a whole lot of different route labels, either crews or maybe you have an irrigation route, so you have like IRR1 for your first irrigation route. You maybe have a maintenance route that does the simple mow, blow, and go servicing. Then you may have like a brush removal route. Each one of these, I mean, even if it's the same technician, it's how you can separate out the services by creating a separate route. If you do any turf care, any spraying of the chemicals on the lawns, you could have a separate turf care route that repeats annually, for instance. So the routes not only can be your technicians, crews, or trucks, they could also be maybe the different services. I could put in a department, and to set up my departments, I can just double-click in that field. You can see some of the examples I've set up here. I'm going to put both these guys in the routing department. This helps us break down some of this information later when we start getting into the reporting side of the software. Now, if I plan to track any on-truck inventory, I would need to set up a default warehouse. We're not going to cover this too much today, but it would not hurt at all, even if you don't quite know what this is going to do yet. Just go ahead and set one up anyway. The default warehouse for each technician can simply be their route name. So this could be R1, and that could be Crew 1. So now we have our 2 technicians or 2 crews available, and now we can actually start adding stops to our route schedule. Now each line on this page is going to be or represent one stop on the schedule. And there's no real pattern or any way or trick you have to set this up. You can mix and match frequencies with technicians, and our software will then group them together by technician and by date after the fact. And, yes, Keith, go ahead.
My question was back a while back. You had, for example, our maintenance is done weekly from April through the end of September, and then we go every other week, October through March. Is there a way to set that up?
Yeah, I will utilize the biweekly and weekly to do that, and this may require a little bit of setup where you may have to set up your customers on a weekly schedule. What we can actually do is they would be weekly on this schedule until a certain date. That would be the stop through date on the route schedule. When a stop hits that date, it's going to suspend the weekly service, for instance, and then you would have to add in the biweekly and have a stop go through date when you want it to kick in the weekly.
Okay.
So you will.
So then I'm going to have to reset those dates each year.
Correct. Is you will have the customer on the schedule twice, their weekly, one for their biweekly, and then each one would have its own stop good through date. We are currently working on, for one of our next updates within the next couple weeks, a way to have a shifting schedule that would automatically change itself from week to week or by a certain date. And that may be more what you're looking for, is you could say it's a certain service between these dates. Otherwise, it's service, and Hopper will then manage the rest and switch it accordingly.
Okay.
As of right now, the current way, a lot of our on guys, and especially our pool industries up north, they utilize maybe have like a pool closing, and then they also have a weekly service that is good to a certain date, and then the pool closing goes in, and we're hoping to streamline that here for everyone in about a week.
Okay. Now, in a lot of our clients have what we call multiple services. We have maintenance service, irrigation service, and lawn and ornamental pest control and fertilization. So a client can subscribe to up to 3 services in one client, but we break those down on different routes. Is that going to be an issue?
No, that is exactly how I would set it up. Is you would, on the route setup here, I would have one type of route for each one of those services, and depending on what a client is set up on, you can then put them on to those respective routes. Each one of those routes could then have its own frequency. Technically, each route at the customer level could have its own frequency.
All right.
That'll make a little more sense once I start adding a couple stops here.
All right. Go ahead. Thank you.
No problem.
Can I ask one question real quick?
Yes, sir.
When I think of route, I think of the jobs that a crew is going to do on a specific day. But could you define what you are calling a route?
A route would be a list of scheduled stops that your crew or your tech needs to go service.
On a specific day, or?
Yeah, well, technically it's a schedule, so it could be for one day, it could be for a week, it could be for a month.
Okay.
Let me go ahead and just start setting up a schedule here so I can then kind of demonstrate and run through some examples.
Sure, go for it.
Now I'm going to just simply look at this week. Maybe I'm brand new to the software, so I'm going to start setting up what my technicians would be doing today if they were running on the program. So maybe I'm going to add some weekly stops, and I'm going to start setting up Route 1 or Bill's schedule first. Pick today as the service date, stop number 1, and then pick a customer. Now what I've just set up is a weekly reoccurring schedule for this customer every Monday.
So where's the jump down?
And if I just continue this path, just real simple of picking the frequency, the technician, or the route, pick the day of service, and then stop number 2 for Bill on Monday, and again pick the customer.
Mike, can you hear me?
Yes.
It's Glenn here. Does the program somewhere along the lines? This is my understanding that right now you're picking, the route, but is either the map program or some other device in the program going to help us choose the most efficient route in terms of geography?
I think I heard that whole question. You got kind of quiet there in the middle, but I think what you're asking is, do we have a mapping program to help you with this?
Yes, so that you're not randomly picking, what you think is the best route.
What you have to do first is put customers onto this route schedule. Then we can use MapPoint and optimize and reorder and have MapPoint tell us what's the best way to do this. If you're not coming from any existing type of scheduling program where you've had a kind of a route set up before, then I recommend just pick one day. I would put all my customers on this for one technician on one day and number them 1 through X. And then I could map that all as one solid route. And then MapPoint will optimize it, group the customers together, and then I could break out 10 stops for my first tech, the next 10 is my second tech. Okay, now Tuesday, we're going to take the next 10 on the list for each tech. But But if you do have some sort of schedule, whether or not it's in any order at all now, just go ahead and set it up in that order, and then you can have our software reorder it for you.
I understand. That's great.
Perfect. Now, I can mix and match frequencies here depending on what the customer needs. Maybe this customer's on a bi-weekly Monday. And if I'm done setting up maybe this technician's schedule, maybe he only has 3 stops today, this is where I could go right down. Maybe I'm setting up my next technician's Monday schedule. Stop number 1, because I'm starting a new tech schedule. And this is what I meant when I said earlier that it's flexible, where you don't have to put them in any order. Let's say I forgot to add a stop to Route 1 schedule for Monday. Well, just on the new line, I could go back and add in a technician here, or go back and add a stop to a technician. And then our software, if I hit reset on the page, is going to put that and group it together with the rest of the Monday stops for Route 1.
Question real quick. So can the frequency be just a one-time job?
Yeah. If I go in to set up frequencies, I could have a one-time,
Okay.
length of days 0, and then delete after posting the route. Meaning when I mark a certain part of that schedule as being complete, anything one time is going to remove itself.
Okay, so as in it's going to remove itself from any further dates or any possibility of further dates?
Correct. Basically, you would add a customer one time on here, which I can go ahead and do, just so we can see the example when I roll the schedule forward, what happens. So maybe I add a one-time stop for Route 1 on Monday. So it's going to be treated like a regular scheduled stop with the ones that have actually a frequency. But in just a moment, I'll show you when we advance the schedule what happens to those one-time stops.
Great, thank you.
Now, what I've done pretty much now is I've set up maybe one technician's schedule for Monday and started working on a second schedule. And if I'm done setting up my stops for Monday, I can just simply on this line here sorry about that. We've got getting a lot of feedback from people with microphone and speakers. If we're ready to start working on Tuesday's schedule, again, we just start that at the new line. Start picking the frequencies, the tech. Now we're going to work on Tuesday, and then you start your numbering over again. Now, if I had a customer that maybe we service twice a week, maybe a Tuesday, Thursday, or maybe a Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I would set them up either twice a week. I would have them 2 times on this schedule, a weekly for Tuesday and maybe a weekly for Thursday. If you're using the routes as maybe services, so maybe instead of R1, R2, we have irrigation. And then we have maintenance. Then maybe we have a spray route or a turf care. I'll just label that TC for turf care. Depending on what my customers sign up for Keith's example, we may have, some customers on a maintenance route, This same customer may also be on a regular, let's see, irrigation route. That happens maybe a little later in the month. So I may at any given time have a customer on my schedule 3 or 4 different times for either various services, different routes, or different frequencies. Now our route notes field here is used for general notes entry for that account or for that stop. Anything that you want your guys to see in the field, if you were to print a paper schedule, it would show up. If you were to look on the mobile device before they can create a route ticket, they're going to see these route notes. So if you have to call customer before service, if you need a spot to put a gate code, or if you have a hide key somewhere on the customer's property, you could notate that in there for them underneath the rock by the fence post, whatever it may be. And you can double click in this route notes field to get a large window to start entering those notes for that one stop. Now our suspended column allows us to basically freeze a stop on this schedule. You could do this manually by just going in and suspending a stop, and what that's going to do is it will not show up on the mobile devices, it will not show up on a printed schedule. It's a great way if maybe they're past due or behind in their bill, you can basically keep them from being serviced until they pay up, and then you can unsuspend them. Now that can be automated with the stop good through date for any type of seasonal work where maybe you're doing a pool closing or a pool opening. If you're going from a weekly service to a bi-weekly service, that stop good through date will control when that stop gets suspended. If a job has a particular start time, we could control that here so that one, the tech knows when he's supposed to be there. It also feeds into MapPoint. When MapPoint does its optimizations, if it has a particular time, it'll take that into consideration when trying to optimize your route. Now our route time column is where we can budget a certain amount of time for this stop to be completed in. And this time is in minutes. So maybe my stops should be done in 40 minutes. And you can have this be different for each customer depending on what services you're doing. I'm just going to put 40 across the board. And at the bottom of my page, it would tell me I have 6 hours worth of work on my schedule this week so far, based on the budgeted amount of route time. You can do that with the travel time. Maybe it's 20 minutes of travel for each stop, or from stop to stop. This data here can be compared when we run reports to the actual time on site that your technicians are going to be doing, either on the route tickets or their paper worksheets. They could write in their arrival time and departure time, and that will get analyzed in the report. Basically, how efficient are they versus the time you've budgeted or said they should take, or how long you said it should take to do that job versus how long they actually did it in. To track the number of stops right here on the farthest right of the route schedule. This is specific to our kind of lawn landscape companies, but it can be used for any number of reasons. It's very flexible if you're maybe controlling the amount of contracted services that remain for a customer. we could utilize this. What it was directly aimed for is controlling the number of cuts left in the season for a customer. If you have a customer, I think Keith and Benjamin were chatting about this earlier before the class started, that maybe you have a customer that gets weekly service. Well, a true weekly service year-round would be 52 cuts a year. Well, you may skip some of those, some may be rainouts or rescheduled. This will let you track the actual number of times you physically service them. So if they get 52 cuts a year, we should be able to keep a tally of how many are left at any given time. We budget 52. As you service, that number will increase and tell you how many you have remaining for that customer. Now to print out a simple schedule, I can go to Route Info, Print Route Sheets. I could print maybe just one crew, or I could leave that blank and print everyone's schedule for the given date range, and I could just do one day, or I could do a week. But right now, let's say I want to look at just Route 1 schedule for today. And then here are the templates we have of what we have available to you to print out this route sheet. Personal favorite, I like version 3. It's a nice condensed look. Lists out every stop on that technician's schedule. Allows them to key in the arrival time and departure time. Maybe you want to keep track of who is working on that crew that day. You could do version 3 with crew info. Gives each crew member a time to write in, start and stop time, total hours for the day on that crew, keep track of truck mileage. There's, like I said, a bunch of different versions here. Version 1 for the pool industry has your chemical data for them to keep track of. Now, the next thing I want to touch on, and it gets a little difficult for me to really get into a whole lot of detail, especially in the training class on the specific scenarios, but I'll give a basic overview of how the billing works in regards to these customers on this reoccurring schedule.
Just Mike?
Yes, sir.
Just before you get into that, I know we touched on it a little bit this morning about the task entries. If the task entries interface with the route scheduling, where specific tasks that you are looking for can be checked off on a specific, on a specific customer.
Now, we have a couple different ways tasks integrate with the route schedule. You can manage it a couple different ways. One, we can either take route stops and turn them into tasks, and I don't really see a good use for that other than if you have to see these stops on a calendar, then that's the only way to do it. We could generate stops to tasks. We could pick a route, R1, and then a date, Monday. I could hit create, and it's going to turn each one of these into a task in our software. And like I said, the only real benefit of that is being able to see these on a calendar. Now, what I recommend is if you're using tasks to keep track of maybe some miscellaneous odds and ends or calls that are coming in, different work you have to do, we can dynamically build a route or add what I would call maybe add-ons to a route schedule based on what we have currently open as tasks. And we do that by just turning on a setting in the software by going to System, Control Table Maintenance. under Task tab, I want to make sure that I have the option of prompt to add task to route schedule set to yes. So let's say I'm going throughout my work week and I create a task. Maybe it's a service call. I'm going to assign it to Route 1, one of my route technicians. So I have this open task. What I can do now is click the route schedule button. What it has done, if you see here, it has added a task line and added it automatically to today's route from task service call, customer states. It has all the notes from that task in the route notes for me. It creates a one-time frequency called task. That way your guy knows when he's looking at his schedule, you know, he's already got probably a route stop for that customer. Now he can know to do this extra task work, or maybe the task is just a one-time job and you can easily add it on to your existing route so your guys can knock it out. That way you don't have to send another tech specifically for that job.
Can you go over that one more time, Michael?
Certainly. What I was demonstrating is how to get this task, or basically as customers call in and say they need work or they need this fixed or this address or this is going wrong at my property when your guy comes out this week, can you have him take a look at that? You can enter all those as tasks. Now at the beginning of every week, I would just need to make sure that my assigned to is actually assigned to one of my route technicians. So that R1 matches my technician here, R1, who has a set schedule. Now this task, let's say, is for today, and I want to add it on as basically a one-time type of service for this customer. All I have to do on my task list is hit the route schedule button to open up my route schedule, and it's going to prompt me, do you want to put open tasks onto the route schedule? Press yes, and it automatically adds the task from my task list as a route stop.
If you have a bunch of tasks in
Mike?
there, will it add all of the tasks, or is it going to just add the one that,
Well,
I don't understand, is it going to add all of the tasks, or is it just going to add the one task that you just completed working on?
There are a couple parameters. The task has to have a due date. I think it has to be either basically in that 14-day window that we have by default on the task list, and it has to be assigned to a route technician. As long as those parameters are correct, I mean, if you have 100 open tasks within the next 14 days, yes, it will add all open tasks.
Mike, Glenn again. I
Yes,
believe I kind of got I'm not trying to back you up at all, but I just went through my notes from this morning, and it wasn't. I remember you saying that your task entry, you believe your thoughts were that they were one-time entries or one-time tasks. But more specifically to the route management, which we were going to get in this afternoon, was not a task, was a checklist for the route stops.
the checklist can be added just like we can right here, just like we did this morning on the customers when we created the task. We can have a separate checklist for each stop on our schedule.
That's what I'm looking for.
And you can go down to each stop and create a customized checklist. And let's add, if you were watching this morning, you saw kind of where I set up the checklist. And again, that was under Task Info, Maintain Checklists. And if I attach a checklist here, I then can go and print a route sheet that has with checklists. Now, if I want to, Glenn, are you okay with creating a checklist? Did you just need to know how to like add it or attach it to the route stop?
Yes, that's exactly what I was looking for. So.
Okay, perfect.
Good.
Perfect. Now, the method I just demonstrated of adding a task to the route schedule as a one-time stop would be a kind of a streamlined solution than to just going in and using this one time and adding it on there. You can actually create that work order that the task itself can be tracked and closed and invoiced separately. That way you can still bill for that one-time service without having to set up what I'm about to kind of dive into here, which is our memorized transaction list and how we accommodate billing for all these customers on the schedule. Now, we use the memorized transaction list within our software to help manage the different, I guess, for the most part, monthly billing for these customers. Whether you charge them a certain amount per service, but bill them once a month, we can handle all of that. And by just going to the memorized transaction list, you can see one customer here that I've set up maybe gets a weekly service at $40 a week. And I would set up my customers one by one, just how I did them on the route schedule, put in the item I used for billing, weekly service, and maybe this customer we charge $50 per week. Now, if you have multiple services or multiple charges that you need on that invoice for the one customer, we would just select that same customer name. And maybe they also get like a monthly irrigation check. So I could accommodate for that in there.
So, Mike, how does that work for weekly service but billed monthly? Is it like single charge? Not
what this is going to do is at the end of the month, you can put in the date range of what you're billing for, calculate number of stops, and it's going to total up. It'll populate maybe 4 here for a customer that you have weekly on your route schedule and take 4 times the weekly rate of 40 to get a monthly charge of $200 for service that month. Now, there are multiple ways we can actually generate this count on how many times you visited a customer. We can do it off the route schedule itself, meaning it's going to look at the scheduled history and count how many times you were there. The only downside of that is if you maybe skipped a stop, or the software is not going to know to stat between basically a stop that was completed. There's not a separation there. That's why we have the option to use a route ticket, meaning if your guys are filling out a route ticket in our software for every physical service, if you only have 3 route tickets in a month for that customer, that means you service them 3 times, and that's an easier way we can get a direct count of the number of services. Now, these route tickets are either filled out on the mobile devices from the techs in the field, or they can be auto-generated here and then filled out maybe at the end of the day or the end of the week when the techs turn back in their paperwork. What I can show you and demonstrate is how we can auto-generate these route tickets. So if I go to Route Info, I have an option to auto-generate route tickets. I then can select the date I want to pre-create my tickets for, so maybe today's date. Generate tickets. When I go into View Tickets, it now has created a route ticket for every stop on today's schedule, the 8th. Here's where I could go back in at the end of the day or the end of the week, and I have my industry right now set for the pool company. So what you see here are the different chemical readings that you could fill in from the guy's hard copy paperwork. They could then bill out any additional items, chemicals, parts, labor, any extra charge for this service can be billed out through these route tickets. Then what our software does is it looks at this customer, how many route tickets did we have in this date range, so maybe 4 if we were actually there and serviced them 4 times. Now we've got our base monthly charge of $200. Well, if I want to combine them with any other maybe possible things that we could have billed that customer for in the month on any one of those scheduled services, I would post to route tickets, and it's going to combine any extra charges that were billed out on any of the route tickets for that customer with that base monthly charge and generate one invoice that goes to QuickBooks. I demonstrate that. I'm just going to run out of time today. I know it, so I'm not going to get into too much detail on the billing. I do want to get into the route mapping. If you go to miscellaneous info and view training videos, if you're really wanting to see more of the billing side right away, I do have an excellent training video that I have done not too long ago where I actually do get to demonstrate the full process of actually running the billing and sending it to QuickBooks. And that is on our training video page. If you go to videos, it is the routing and mapping from Wednesday the 20th. That class right there, you can click and watch, and you'll see the full process demonstrated where we auto-generate route tickets, we fill in some dummy data, we calculate the number of route stops, combine those with the route tickets, and then post them to QuickBooks and emulate a full monthly billing. If we have customers that maybe we don't charge per service, maybe you charge them just a flat monthly rate, $200 a month, we can still use this memorized transaction list, and my rate in total I'm going to pre-fill accordingly. Is I would just have quantity 1, rate 200, total 200, and once a month I would just hit post to QuickBooks. Simply generating an invoice for every customer on this list for the amount that I had specified. Now if I have a mixture of both, that's why we have a billing group. I can do flat rate, monthly, per stop, weekly. I may have some that I charge a flat rate and some I charge per service or per stop. Yes, Keith?
No, you're answering the question I have right now. Keep going.
Okay, perfect. What this will allow us to do is maybe we have our flat rate customers that I just need to push that simple invoice to QuickBooks. Well, I could take my grouping, flat rate, post to QuickBooks, and then any of those flat rate customers now can be invoiced to QuickBooks. Now I could go back in and calculate my number of stops for my per service customers and walk through the process of posting to route tickets, combining it with those other charges or possible other charges, and then invoicing to QuickBooks. And Keith, if you use, I don't know if you do or not, but do you use classes in QuickBooks to separate the dollar amounts?
We haven't been, but we need. I guess that's something we might need to do.
You could create a irrigation class, a maintenance class, a repair class, and then just allows you to run reports in QuickBooks and filter it down to basically segment out where that income is coming from. That's where we have the class selection here. You could have, these are landscaping charges. That one's for maintenance. the route mapping is very simple in our software. It does require Microsoft Map Point, which does have to be purchased separately. I'll give you a little piece of advice. If you Google Map Point 2011, make sure it's 2011 trial. Microsoft offers a 60-day, 2-month free trial of Map Point, only the 2011 version. That works great with our software. The mapping is still updated, I believe as of January of this year. They just released the 2013 version, so that's why MapPoint's now allowing this. If you try to get the 2013 trial, you only get 2 weeks with it.
Michael, does Windows 8 work okay with your software?
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear that. What was that?
Does Windows 8 work okay with your software?
Yes, we are fully compatible with Windows 8.
Okay.
All I have to do if I have MapPoint installed to map a simple route is pick my assign to, R1, and then pick my date of service. So I want to map Bill's route for today. And then just hit map. Give me just a sec, it's opening up on my other monitor. And I have just some dummy addresses in here, so excuse this stop way out of the way. That'd be a long route for anybody. There we go. I'm just going to remove it for now. And here's what you will get is a example of the route mapped in MapPoint as it sits, however I set it up in the service program. Now, as of right now, it's telling me that it's going to take me about 50 miles of driving and about an hour and 16 minutes just to drive this straight. What I can now do is bring up my route planner by hitting Route Planner. In the lower left-hand corner, I could then hit Optimize Stops. What MapPoint has done is taken off just about 12 miles off my route and has reordered everything for me, and it's now saying it's about an hour, give or take hour, 6 minutes or so of driving. Not the biggest optimization, but now the nice thing about MapPoint is it is its own separate program. This program itself is incredibly powerful about getting into territories. You now can split up this area, maybe sales reps. You can have MapPoint plots, similar businesses, residential zones, commercial zones.
Send that out to Victor about time waste. Okay. I'm having trouble with.
Now, what we have to do is whatever MapPoint does and rearranges for me, I have to then take that stop number and reorder my numbers manually. This is the only downside. Is once it's optimized, I then renumber based on MapPoint's suggestion. Now, where the automation comes in, once you have set up your basic routes or your core routes, adding new customers, you will not have to do this mess again. New customer I need to add on for service, I can just go to Route Info, map new distance for a route stop. This is where I can pick the new customer who maybe I don't have on my route yet. I can hit Get Distance. MapPoint is going to automatically search behind the scenes through all my existing routes, and it will get distance from this new customer to each stop on my schedule. It'll return results, and right away it tells me the best time to service this new customer is weekly on Monday because we service a customer that's 1.45 miles away. Now, it's telling me I should do it, basically this customer, I could do it either right before or right after. I'm going to do it right after. So just click after. And now, here it is on my schedule automatically right after the one it recommended. Done. You don't have to re-optimize, you don't have to remap or do anything like that. It's already in the best order when you do this map new distance for route stop. If you had some particular parameters that you needed to allocate for, maybe they couldn't be serviced on Monday, maybe they needed Tuesday, well, you could filter Tuesday and see what your closest stop is on Tuesday. Or maybe there need to be monthly. Well, you could look through only your monthly frequencies and find where to put them. I do have to stop right at 3 o'clock here today. I do encourage everyone. We did have some great questions. We will do this routing and mapping class again, I believe, a little later this week. We do it in the morning instead of the afternoon. Please refer to our routing and mapping videos if you want a little bit more detail on the billing side. I normally cover a little bit more, but we didn't quite get there today. If you have some existing questions that we didn't quite get to today, please feel free to email us at customersupport@westrumsoftware.com. I'd be more than happy to field those questions, send you a couple of shots back, and keep you moving.
Mike, I've got a real quick question for you. On the videos, is there a beginner video similar to the one that we, the session this morning?
If you give me an hour or two, I'll have this morning's video on our website.
Oh, perfect. Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks.
Anytime. I'll also have this one up. If everyone checks back right around 4:30, 5 o'clock today on our training site, I'll have these two videos up for everyone to download today.
Super.
All right, I hope everyone has a great afternoon. We had a great turnout today in the class, and we'll see all of you throughout the week.
Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
Thanks. Take care, guys.